that maybe the cost function might be wrong, and you should probably believe in what the user wants to do. So that's I think I asked you that in your thesis, but I would like to see if I mean if it's I mean I guess you can blindly believe the user, right? So that you can trust the user in what the user is doing, which at the moment is not the case. But sometimes you don't want to trust the user. So I don't know if you want to
exactly.
In one of his questions, sometimes like there is not is decreasing or is affecting the policy. You don't take into account what the user is doing. So in that case, you're like trusting more the definition of your cost function than the user. Now, in some other cases, you might want to trust more the user because maybe the cost function is not properly defined or there's not enough information.
Yeah, for instance, I can imagine now that it could be another degree of freedom of algorithm. Like if we have, as a parameter to control, how much to trust the reward function, and then differentiate level performance according to the user evaluation. But the function is the performance, so the user thinks that's the way that I would do it here.
It's kind of overriding model. Yeah. The human will take over or something like that. Okay. So it seems when the tasks are getting more complex and the interface may be more difficult to define. I mean, if you have a larger degrees of freedom in the action space, then the feedback might be more difficult to define in a way that will be easier. Have you thought about that?
Yeah, this teaching, and it is general for all the cases of learning from demonstration. In the case where the user is giving the demonstration, if the user is not aware of all the degrees of freedom all the time, well, we can try to use interfaces where we can select some of the degrees in order to cover some of them. That way it will be to go slowly giving feedback from the user.
Okay. Now, well, another thing is, one thing that I like about this work is that you show that sometimes a coach, a human, can teach the system to perform a task that the user cannot do. I mean, that cannot control the system, but with coach, the user was able to teach or give sufficient feedback in order to the system to learn how to do the task. So, have you encountered some of these studies where there's a, I mean, you can see that in sports. I mean, the coaches are not able to perform the way the professional athletes do. I mean, they are just guiding them to do whatever they do. I mean, certainly the coach of Usain Bolt doesn't run like Usain Bolt. So he's just guiding and he's coaching. So have you encountered some studies about this of why is it that, I mean, you can coach or you can teach someone to do something that is beyond your capabilities?
Well, this observation is one of the most important observation and conclusion we got from this research, because using this kind of feedback that is corrective, that is a relative change of the action that the policy is executing, allows us to have this scenario where the users can be like the sports coach when they, for instance, the people usually are teaching students that are way better than them because they are actually sport players. This is similar the case as we got in the results with experiments here. The users trying to learn to execute the task in order to being able to give good demonstrations, but was not possible, for instance, in all those tasks of balancing, all these equilibrium tasks. But they understood how to suggest advices in order to improve. So, but the point is, like, this make the learning from demonstration generally feel like more applicable now to specifically this continuous control task. And yeah, I think we can do a comparison with the real life sport coaches, because it's basically a similar interaction between the coach and the sport player, and here the user, the human teacher, and the robot learner.
Okay, just one final question. I guess future work and see what you think about. I mean, in some cases there was some small errors that the user was not able to perceive, and that's one thing. The other thing is that sometimes the dynamics were too fast, that's another point. And there's some problems where there might be some symmetries that you might take into account to make this thing faster. So I guess the question is, have you considered, like, for making zoom on some problems where the user is not able to perceive the small details related to the problem? Then I'm sure that the user will be able to correct those small errors. And the other thing is about these dynamics. If it's a very fast dynamics, you might, at least in simulation, you may try to slow down the system in order for the user to have opportunity to give feedback correctly. And the last part has to do with the latest experiments, where it was kind of difficult to learn one of the letters, like it was the letter P. But I guess that if you want to learn the letter B or the Q or the D, which are just rotations and symmetries of the first letter, then I'm not sure if you could take into account what you have previously learned and use this kind of symmetric knowledge or symmetry knowledge. So I would like to see if you can comment on those three possible future directions or extensions to your work.
I'm a bit confused. Well, I think this video is one of the tasks that where the perception was enough to evaluate what the agent had to do, but it still was hard for the user to finish the good policy. I mean, in the very first experiment with this problem, we were teaching to get the balance of this task. But in this case, we needed to center the car in this place where it is now. But for the user, it was very hard to try to get both objectives. I mean, the user was only giving the corrections for keeping the balance, but the user didn't know how to make the balance inside the scenario. So here, the reward function reinforcement learning improves with the real system. So relying on simulators or interfaces for offline would be maybe a good idea for that.
Yeah, but I mean, it would be nice to detect if the user is struggling to get feedback, and then slow it down to the user. when you see that it's giving a right feedback. Okay, well, that's one thing. The other thing was about these like small errors that were not able to, that the user was were not able to detect because they were I mean, they couldn't detect it from the distance. So, so maybe if you can, talking about, again, for simulation, that if you can make a kind of zoom into the area, and then let the user, like, is
other interfaces or other tools like simulators, and then yeah, just going down and zoom in the to observe better what's going on. Yeah, I think that's also possible.
okay. I'm fine. Thank you for your answers.
Gracias, Eduardo. Now, Marcos Orchard, please, your questions.
Thanks, Patricio. Dear Carlos, you know, when we went through the presentation, I had a few questions regarding the hypothesis that you basically were stating. I made a few comments when I checked on the written document, and I would like to go through that. I'm aware that these findings were published in journals already, and therefore I assume that they have been revised and accepted by the community. However, I would like to explore a little bit how all these hypotheses were actually validated in terms of the methodology that you followed during your research, which was the procedure that you follow in order to select the most appropriate performance metrics. Because if you go through the document, the hypotheses are a little bit vague, right? It's like, for example, third hypothesis, the generalization of the proposed framework learning. What is generalization from your point of view? What we are talking about? Improvements of the learning time. That's more concrete. But something like, for example, in the second statement, or the second hypothesis also, we talk about improvement, facilitation of the knowledge transfer between the human teacher to the machine learners. So all those hypotheses, in order to be validated, require metrics. What was the procedure to select those metrics? To say, hey, you know what? This is the manner in which I need to measure the efficiency and efficacy of the algorithm that I'm proposing. And why do I will select these metrics and no others? Issue. What was the design of the experimental lab, the methodology, and how you can make sure that this was the best way in which you could validate this? And this is a question that was already posed in the presentation. It's like, well, when your approach does not perform very well, and that's part of a criticism that I feel it's not present in your statement, and I would like to explore a little bit this time.
Well, I will start from the last part. Yeah, I think there is two of factors, because here to find, okay, have can like this depend teacher of those limitations that we talk about, for instance, when it is, and we have pens that are going faster, I mean, like in more instant, that are changing like very, very fast the scenarios of the problems. So the other limitation is with the user is how to improve it. But like to define this is and to try the improvement of the learning process, and it was basically there was two methods. That is the amount of episode.
Are we dimensions related to the problem you're trying to solve over here? What I'm worried over here is that probably we are moving in a paradigm from velocity is positive, I do something in order to try to control that. And I always do that. However, at some point, I do otherwise. I'm a human. I can commit mistakes. Do you realize when you are analyzing the directions that the human is providing that something is contradictory with respect so that you, for example, can neglect that command and avoid that as it never was done?
Yeah, well, the human feedback modeling model has something to do in that the prediction of the correction in for that region of the state space, and what the algorithm does in those cases is that, I mean, what will happen is that the correction will be the prediction will be smaller because the prediction, I mean, the prediction of the correction of the human is like we can see that as like an average of the past corrections. So if all the last ones were to the right and then suddenly to the left, this will be moved more a bit to the left. So it means that what we have as an assumption is when it happens is that the user is trying to fine-tune, in those cases where the user is oscillating the feedback. In those cases, this prediction will be very small, and this is used for computing an adaptive learning rate. And then in that case, the change in the update of the policy will be very small. So in those cases, the change of the policy will be very small, but still it will happen. I mean, the algorithm wouldn't take that as a wrong feedback. But what will happen is that it wouldn't have at the beginning a huge impact unless the user gives several times feedback in that direction. That it will mean that it is not a mistake.
All right, good. I like it. All right, Carlos, it's fine. I mean, I had other questions, but they were already posed by reviewers, so I'm happy to pass it on to the president of the committee.
Gracias, Marcos. And last but not least, we go with the advisor of the thesis, Javier.
Okay, thank you very much, Patricio and Carlos. First, congratulations for your work and for your presentation. Okay, I have two simple questions. The first one is the following. What did you learn during your PhD? What is the most important things that you learned? The question is not only about technical aspects, it's also about other aspects. Can you summarize your learning?
Oh, but your question is still pointing to academia, right?
Yeah. Not life, not more.
Well, I think I had, before starting the PhD, I had a very different view of how the research evolves and how like we are being supported in the research of previous researchers. was not aware of this. How was the dynamics of this? And then in the very first years, I started to learn like the typical things that we are just reading a lot of papers and implementing and reproducing the research of others, and then discovering that sometimes there are more things that are not in the papers, but sometimes that also there are mistakes in the paper. I mean that science is not always in the literature is not always perfect, and we sometimes get disappointed where we found in the literature. I also these are more negative things. I mean, I learned that the processes of, for instance, the reviewers. I was submitting papers and I got reviews that didn't read basically the papers, and I was losing time and like also getting disappointed. Those things. I learned from that I had to be more patient and more like strong in order to face those things that are normal and happen all the time and to everybody inside.
So how important were the research visits that you did during your studies? Do you think they were very important, or the visits to other labs?
Yeah. I had the opportunity. I had a nicer opportunity to visit some labs abroad. I had a lot of vision about the field where I was researching on, and I learned from different researchers. I also learned about how academia is working in other places in the world, and I also had the opportunity to talk about what I was doing with people that were very close to this, and getting feedback from them was very helpful for finishing my PhD. And also, the facilities of other labs helped me a lot with experiments that I think will have more visibility than the experiments that I did at the beginning of my PhD. So that also was something that contributed a lot in my PhD. Yeah, but always learning from people that are from all around the world that have different culture and different ways to approach the problems while we are researching. That was also the part that is not so technical, but still linked to this life.
Okay. Coming back to your work, let us speak about the users. Okay. So you said that coach don't need expert users. Okay, it's for non-experts. But did you see some differences among the users that interacted with coach by solving these different problems? So there are people that is better for this kind of training, or that a better coach than others, or
Yeah, definitely.
what do you need?
I had the experience actually here in the lab where I am supposed to be the best coach because I was always tuning the algorithms and the interface and the simulations, and I was playing all the time with coach and teaching and getting better and better policies after the time. But when I started to do the experiments with more people, some people were better than me in the first. And I was surprised that I was expecting that I was going to be the best. I mean, my results were not included in the population, but I was thinking that I was better than all the people that would participate. And it was not the case. There were people that were way better with one or two trials of interacting with code. And the reason I think is because people that are used to play with video games are like more aware of understanding how to interact with different things, like when it is virtual interaction, or also with the robot. But I think people that usually usually play video games are when you have the most skilled in this kind of interaction.
So, do you think it's only these very technical skills, or in some other problems could be also something related with intuition? Because in other contexts, there are some people that is better teacher than others. And I have the view is because they have some intuition. They can see what the one that is learning needs, you know. So it could be that also in this case where the humans internally calculate kind of rewards, that some people can have more intuition about in this precise moment what the agent needs to know, so which feedback needs to receive or not.
I mean, yeah, I think there are people that always get these intuitions more than the others. But going back to the point is that I think that people like usually play video games, they have these skills that they easily and fast they got to understand what is going on, and they anticipate to all the things that happen in this environment.
Well, as my prerogative as president of this committee, I would like to ask just one last question. I'm pretty glad that you have different visits to other labs, and I'm glad that more of our students are going abroad for doing internships or sharing results, making research abroad. My question is, how do you compare the education that you receive here or the research you do here with other places? I mean, would you say we could be consider ourselves as competitive, I mean, to really play a role in research worldwide, or we still need to learn more?
I think there are different things, because also, for instance, the PhD programs are very different in every university. So the way that the students go through the PhD, I saw that it's very different depending on the place. But in general, for instance, education, I would consider that here there is a very high level in the master students. I mean, I don't know how to say this, but I don't know if it is very greedy to say that maybe higher than some other places in Europe, for instance. The preparation and also the mood and the behavior of the student for facing the research. At least, for instance, in master, I think it's there is a huge difference in this. In the PhDs, I think it's similar, the level. I was in like 4 different labs, and it was interesting to see that the people were going through the same processes, and we were talking about the same things. Like we had similar experiences, like going to new topics and the things. I think in the PhD is similar, but what is different is that resources, right? Like in Latin America, we don't have the resources and facilities that are available in other universities that are richer, and that makes a lot of difference when you do very fancy experiments in real organized platforms, and then it's easier to get published with that.
Thanks, Carlos. I would like to ask the public present here, and Carlos, please to leave the room. We will make
¿Tú estás controlando el Skype?
No,
Pensé
no,
en su
el Skype es
computador.
desde allá.
Ahí están todos los...
Sí, profe, desde allá.
Francisco Camilo, te agradecieron harto en la tesis. si tú lo invitas a su casa, Carlos, a Sur, ¿no? Sí, ahí, con los estrellitos,
Bueno. Ah, sí, y bueno.
No se enoje.
Don Carlos. Amerito, Amerito. Casi. Saludos a su fanática del Skype. Sí, sigue en vivo.
Ahí va, te mando saludos.
Sergio Castelblanco pregunta que qué pasó.
Lo que pasa es que ahora hay que salir para
No sé quién más estaba conectado. Sé que Luis y Jair estaban conectados. Sí, sí, porque se me cayó la conexión como 3 veces. Sí.
las veces pasadas no se le cayó nunca.
No. Sí. O sea, hay 2 links. Parte 1 y parte 2.
O sea, cuando se cae toca reinstalar, o sea, reiniciar.
Sí.
Me falta practicar.
Sí. ¿Cómo hace Ross? ¿Cómo hace? Jesús Peralta, que sí estaba muy asustado. Jair le dice que muy bien.
¿Asustado? No. Pero, o sea, no estaba asustado, pero estaba preocupado porque...
Él es el que está en Alemania.
Sí, Jesús.
Ah, ya.
Porque no estaba bien preparado para presentar, o sea, porque no practiqué.
Nah, pero le salió bien.
Pero eso es lo que... O sea,
Qué modesto. Ay, no practiqué. Hasta las respuestas parecían ya entregadas.
no, pero, o sea, sí, claro, viéndolos de afuera, pues puede que parezca, pero tal vez no dije la mayoría de cosas que quería decir.
Jesús dice, Cele Capullo quiere un hijo tuyo.
Y sí,
Ay, vi ese restaurante en Portugal. Le dio risa, yo estaba cruzando y decía Eche Gourmet.
Ah, Camilo también estaba conectado un rato. No sé si todavía esté, pero estaba conectado. Te mando saludos. Igual ahí todos los saludos le quedan grabados en el chat.
Oye, Camilo no está Alemania.
No.
No, está intentando ya. Ay, perdón, si está ahí. Oye,
Pregúntale.
ay, Camilo, ¿por qué no vas?
o sea, igual uno está tenso de todas maneras.
Claro, ustedes dicen, bueno, ya está.
Había alguien de su familia, pero no sabe quién era. La H. Celemin, el usuario.
Porque mi hermano me dijo que no podía estar, pero yo le mandé el link a mis papás, o sea, a mi familia.
¿Quién está tu familia?
Pero mi hermano, o sea, creo que mi hermano tenía que ir a trabajar en ese momento.
Jesús dice, estuvo excelente, compita, muchas felicitaciones.
Gracias. Ahora ya se pueden ir a dormir. Ah, no, pero todavía falta que me corten la corbata. ¿Sí?
Ah, te va saliendo acá.
Sí, van saliendo. Bueno, cuando alguien escribe, sale con la notificación.
Ya hay un like.
Sí.
Vino todo.
Sergio Castelblanco, que también lo vieron. Felicitaciones, Marta, que una exposición clarísima.
Gracias. Saludos a Sergio, petatera.
Jair dice más libreteado que reality.
Libreteado. Ah, no,
¿Cómo es?
El libreto.
Ah, ¿verdad? Ahí salió los martes.
Sí.
Sí. ¿Llevan a Temuco?
¿Cuándo viajan?
El jueves.
¿De mañana?
Mañana.
Pero van en avión. Ay,
Que doña María entendió casi todo.
iba a preguntar, pero no le dieron. Pobrecito de la del hijo en español. Niño en español. Hola, hola, ¿cómo estás? Ay.
Saluda a Luismi.
¿Qué dice Luismi?
Hola.
¿Qué dice el cerebro?
¿Está cambiando de cámara hacia acá?
Sí. ¿Qué onda, Rosa?
Ah, pero o sea, ya está la cámara acá.
Hola, Martí.
No sé.
No sé.
O se colgó.
Se colgó la imagen.
Tal vez siempre ha estado colgada. Ah, no, porque usted sí la estaba viendo.
Sí, estaba viendo en el...
¿Cómo haces?
¿Cómo hago?
Secretos de youtuber.
Don Rulitos,
Eso,
qué
ahí.
felicitaciones. Dice
Sí,
don
quiero ser
Lucio.
youtuber.
Sabía que hay Oscar algo.
Mira, ahí aparece todo el...
Ay,
Usted es la secre oficial
¿ya?
y usted técnico.
¿Cómo se ponía hoy no sé qué?
Con
Se
gel.
congeló.
No, pero nosotros en Cano.
Fue incómoda la pregunta de comparar.
¿Qué?
Fue incómoda la pregunta de comparar.
Pensaba que se iba a poner romántico cuando le preguntaron qué aprendió de su...
No, pues
el
es que-
valor de la
es que-
amistad.
Y era una pregunta esperable.
¿Sí?
Así como que me pregunté cosas así.
Ay, justo se colgó esto.
Okay, we have come to a decision. In that sense, everybody, all the members of the committee agree that you deserve to receive your degree. There have been some minor comments that probably will tell you, but still it's minor. There is always room for improvement. I mean, no matter if you're the big professor or just getting your PhD, there's always room for improvement. So these minor comments are, of course, part of everyday life. And then I will read, in Spanish at least, the final document. Acta de grado, don Carlos Eduardo Celemin Páez, aprobado todas las exigencias curriculares establecidas en el plan de estudios del programa de doctorado en Ingeniería Eléctrica. El siguiente fue el resultado del grado de doctor en Ingeniería Eléctrica. Así que permíteme ser el primero en saludarte como doctor en Ingeniería
¡Bravo!
Okay, I want to say some few words. The first thing is to congratulate you for your important achievements, and the rest I will say in Spanish, okay, because it's for you and for the public. Quiero felicitar a Carlos, sinceramente. Yo creo que es uno de los mejores estudiantes de doctorado que hemos tenido en nuestro programa, al menos uno de los mejores que yo he tenido. Y yo creo que ha tenido importantes logros que se pueden ver en sus publicaciones y en este sistema que él desarrolló. Y lo que le quería transmitir felicitar a Carlos y transmitir a las personas, al público, que para ser un investigador exitoso no solamente hay que ser inteligente, ¿ya? También el trabajo constante es importante, el sacrificarse por los objetivos que uno tiene, el preocuparse de hacer las cosas no bien, sino que muy bien, perfecta, es lo que es el camino al éxito. Y yo creo que Carlos es un ejemplo de esto, que no, como les digo, no solamente hay que tener grandes capacidades, sino que también hay que tener una gran voluntad para lograr los objetivos que ustedes se pongan adelante. Y digo esto aprovechando que varios de los que están aquí son estudiantes, y me gustaría que tomen a Carlos y a su trabajo como un ejemplo. ¿Ya? Eso es. Felicitaciones de nuevo, Carlos. Congratulations again.
Okay, I would like to thank all the members of the committee, and with this we finish this meeting. And once more, congratulations, Carlos.
Thank you very much. And thanks to all the professors that are connected today, and thanks for the time, for the effort and the flexibility for reviewing this thesis and trying to contribute, and thanks very much for that. You helped me as well to get a better version of this thesis.
Okay.
Thanks, Carlos.
Okay,
You
thanks.
was an honor.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.
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 ¿Cuándo estuviste en
Hace un año, a principio de
La tradición es que nosotros la hace un compañero que le caiga muy mal. No, pero siempre la hacen los compañeros, yo no puedo tanto bien. Yo le cortaría el traje, que es nuevo, pero la corbata...
La corbata también es nueva.
¿Así que valía la pena venir con ustedes, no? Todos estaban asombrados. ¿Te compraste el collar del terno acá?
Lo tengo en Colombia.
Chao.
¿Te lo compraste aquí? Ah, no, nada. Te ves bien, un estilo moderno. ¿No es cierto? ¿Sabes qué es un terno? ¿Ah?
¿Van a cortar la corbata?
¿Tienes otra foto con la primera? Pero sigue el Skype, por favor. Sigue el Skype. ¿Foto que más te guste? Ya lo lograste.
Yo digo que el centro vale que
Así.
Sí. No sé si ahí.
Ese va a ver.
¿Cuándo te vas a hacerlo? Ah, una semana de fiesta. ¿Te vas de la fiesta al aeropuerto? No, con la resaca no, no dejan subir.
Antes de la resaca.
Salud.
Yo soy la encargada de las fotos, así que todos, todos. Chicos, las fotos, todos.
Felicidades. ¿Me dirías que otro rato?
No les gusta las fotos, pero las son bonitas y los recuerdan, así que...
Juan Carlos. Sebastián. Buenas gracias.
Felicitaciones, Carlitos.
Doctor Celemin.
Ahora sí como doctor. Y ahí no te molesto más. La foto te prometo que ya no molesto más.
Todos selfie, muchachos.
Los que quieran entrar. ¿Cómo parece? Ya, no, otra por si la montas. Tengo otro amigo doctor. Tengo muchos doctores. Tengo muchos amigos doctores ya. Y está casado. Muy bien.
No, o sea, se podría hacer
¿Y Luis?
ahí mismo, Luis creo que estaba con está escribiendo Luis. No puedo dejar de Skype.
Por Gmail, ¿no?
¿Sí?
Pero Liz sí tendrá Gmail.
Sí.
Tocaría desde ese computador.
¿De cuál hay? ¿Qué pasó para la junta? Sí, faltan los... Pero no están para que tienen por un laboratorio. Ah, no tienes perla. No, no lo pueden esperar.